Hi, I'm Lauren Magee, and today I'm going to be presenting my conflict analysis project. I chose option number 3 to analyze the movie Captain America Civil War, and specifically, I'm going to analyze the conflict going on between Captain America and Tony Stark, which is Iron Man. So the first conflict I want to talk about is the main one throughout the movie. It is whether or not to sign the Sokovia Accords. Tony is for signing it. Captain America is against signing it. So basically, the Sokovia Accords is an act created by the United Nations to keep the Avengers in check because of all the destruction that they've caused in the past. So the Accords required individuals to reveal their secret identities. So basically, all these superheroes and villains had to reveal who they were and all their powers that they had. And then the Accords would put regulation on those powers. So there was a big conflict there whether or not to sign it. So one of the main contributors to this conflict was them having incompatible goals. And in our textbook by Joyce Hooker, Hawker, Keith Berry, and William Wilmot, they talk about how all conflicts hinge upon the reality that people perceive incompatible goals held by at least two people who seem to be interfering with what the other person wants. So that's exactly what's going on in this situation. They're both interfering with what they both want. So topic goals have to deal with what do we want. So Tony's topic goal was he wanted those regulations put on the Avengers, and Captain America's topic goal was he didn't want to live under those mandates, and he also thought that they could be flawed. Identity goals deal with saving face. Tony's identity goal is he didn't want to feel or take accountability for the guilt for his past actions and also the actions of the Avengers in general. Captain America's identity goal is he didn't want the Avengers to be seen as villains, and he wanted to be seen as a leader. Process goals deal with what communication process will be used. So Tony, he wanted to do, informal meetings with Captain America. He did try to guilt trip Captain America a couple times. And then Captain America's process goal was he was not interested in debating or communicating about it at all. He had his mindset about not signing the Accords, and he was very much willing to fight to get that. So different perceptions is something we see often in most conflicts, and it is what causes most conflicts. The behaviors of each person, the meaning attached to the behaviors, and the meaning of their relationship. So Tony thinks the Avengers need to be supervised due to the casualties that have been created in the past. And Captain America thought signing the Accords would take away freedom. He also obviously didn't trust the United Nations or the Accords. Their relationship in the past also dealt with power imbalance. They're both kind of seen as the leader of the Avengers. So I think that also goes into how they're perceiving things and why there is such a big conflict. So conflict number 2 is Tony finds out that Captain America's best friend Bucky killed his parents, which he thought something completely different happened, but he was shown a video of Bucky killing his parents. Captain America knew about this since it happened and chose not to tell Tony. And also, Bucky was technically not himself when he killed his parents. He was under control by Hydra, which means he did what they told him to do, and he wasn't aware of what he did. So all 3 of them were clouded by emotion when dealing with this conflict. Obviously, Tony was dealing with a lot of anger. He was not willing to talk about the issue at all and immediately started to cause a fight with both of them, a physical fight. And Bucky has a lot of feelings of guilt, which can bring up a lot of negative responses, negative behaviors. So at first, when Tony goes after him, he does fight back and then instead decided to avoid the conflict altogether. And he tries to leave the fight and eventually does. Captain America definitely wanted to go through communication. He tried to tell Tony that fighting isn't going to change what happened and this and that. And he was definitely more sympathetic towards Bucky and his situation than Tony, which I think caused even more of a emotional response from Tony because Captain America and him are also pretty close. So all around, all of them are very clouded by their different emotions. This created a toxic triangle. So Bucky is definitely the low power in the situation. He was brought into the fight between Tony and Captain America for sure, and they're the high power because they're both trying to get what they want in the situation. And toxic triangles lead to destructive behavior, which is exactly what's going on. All of them are fighting with each other. They can't agree on anything. So how the conflicts were handled. Conflict number one, there's many members in the Avengers, and all the members chose either Tony or Captain America's side. They had little communication, so both sides ended up fighting each other. And then at the end of the movie and at the end of this conflict, Captain America left a note to Tony saying that he hopes they can get past this one day and that if Tony ever needs his help, he'll always be there for him. Conflict number two, on the other hand, ends completely differently. So we know that Bucky avoids the conflict altogether and he leaves. Cap tries to reason with Tony. Tony chose anger and they ended up fighting. And then, kind of towards the end of their fight, Tony still didn't want to talk about it and was still really angry. And he ended up avoiding coming to a resolution as well and leaving the fight. So there was basically no conflict resolution or reconciliation at all in conflict number two. So my recommendations for these situations, our textbook talks about the difficult conversation guide. And I think this is really important because, as I've talked about, there was a lot of violence and fighting instead of communication. So if they could, have this difficult conversation, I think it would help. So the guide talks about, analyzing your own perceptions as well as others. Both Tony and Captain America were not really willing to view the other person's side, view how the other person feels or is seeing the situation, dissecting what feelings contributed to the conflict and how to avoid that. Tony isn't realizing that his past feelings of guilt and current feelings of guilt are contributing to why he wants to sign the Accords and why he's fighting with Captain America. And then how and why has this affected their identity? So once again, guilt, and then Captain America dealing with not wanting to be seen as a villain. So if both of them could, sit down, have this difficult conversation, dissect and analyze their feelings, perceptions, identity, all that, I think they could have a better chance of reaching a solution. Another recommendation is taking accountability. Tony needs to take accountability for his past actions. They need to consider their participation in the conflict, both of them, to be able to come to a solution and, avoid keeping their pride, because that's basically what both of them are doing. And then an enlightened conversation. Once again, little communication by both of them. So a face-to-face apology rather than a note or avoiding it altogether would be preferred. Positive tone, active listening, reflecting their feelings, clarifying, asking questions. Those are all really important aspects that I think could help them come to a solution and go through the process of reconciliation. It can also lessen the feelings of an imbalance of power because, like I said, they both want to be in high power over the Avengers. And yeah, these are my references. Thank you.